I've always been a bit of a night owl, so when I found a job as a late-night security guard at an old abandoned textile mill, it seemed perfect. The pay was decent, and all I had to do was sit in a small office and watch a bank of dusty monitors showing empty, silent hallways. For the first few weeks, it was exactly what I expected: boring, quiet, and peaceful. The only sounds were the hum of the old equipment and the occasional scuttling of a mouse in the walls. My routine was simple. I'd arrive at 10 p.m., do a quick patrol of the main floor, and then settle into my chair for the night. The mill was a maze of rusted machinery, looms frozen mid-stitch, and forgotten spools of thread that coated everything in a fine layer of lint. It was creepy, sure, but in a historical, almost beautiful way. The moonlight filtering through the grimy windows would cast long, skeletal shadows that danced as I walked by. I got used to it. I even started to enjoy the solitude. That all changed on a Tuesday. I was about halfway through my shift, nursing a lukewarm coffee and scrolling through my phone, when a flicker on one of the screens caught my eye. It was camera 7, pointed down a long corridor on the 3rd floor, an area I rarely went to because the floorboards were notoriously unstable. For a split second, I thought I saw a figure dart from one side of the hall to the other. I leaned closer, my heart starting to beat a little faster. Probably just a glitch, I told myself. The wiring in this place was ancient. I kept watching, my eyes glued to camera 7, nothing. Just the empty, decaying hallway. I was about to dismiss it and go back to my phone when it happened again. This time, it was clearer. A tall, thin shadow moved with an unnatural speed, disappearing behind a large weaving machine. It wasn't a glitch. My breath hitched. I grabbed the radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 3 at the old mill. I've got a possible intruder on the 3rd floor, camera 7. The radio crackled back to life. "Copy that. Unit 3. Are you able to confirm visual?" "Negative," I said, my voice a little shaky. "They're hiding behind some equipment. I'm going to investigate. Stay on the line." I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight and unclipped the keys from my belt. The thought of going up to the 3rd floor now filled me with a sense of dread I had unfelt before. The mill suddenly seemed less like a historical relic and more like a tomb. As I made my way to the stairwell, every creak of the floorboards sounded like a footstep behind me. The air grew colder, and a strange sweet smell, like rotting flowers, filled my nostrils. When I reached the 3rd floor, the silence was deafening. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing unnervingly through the vast space. "This is security. The property is closed. You need to leave now." Only the echo answered. I swept my flashlight beam across the room, illuminating rows of silent, hulking machines. Dust motes danced in the light like tiny ghosts. I moved cautiously, toward the area I'd seen the movement on camera. The floorboards groaned under my weight, and I had to step carefully to avoid the weaker spots. As I rounded the machine, where the shadow had vanished, I saw it. On the floor, there was a single, fresh-cut red rose. Its petals were perfect, vibrant against the dusty gray concrete. My blood ran cold. Who would leave a rose here, and how? The doors had been locked since I started my shift. I knelt, my light trembling slightly. There were no thorns on the stem. It was perfectly smooth. I backed away slowly, my eyes scanning the darkness around me. The sweet smell was stronger here. Over the radio, I whispered, "Dispatch, I'm on the 3rd floor. It's strange. I found a flower. A flower. Unit 3. The dispatcher sounded confused. "Is there any sign of forced entry?" "No, that's the thing. Everything's locked up tight." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the far end of the hall. I jumped, spinning around and pointing my light in the direction of the sound. It came from the old dye room, a section of the mill that had been sealed off for decades due to chemical hazards. I knew for a fact that the door was chained and padlocked. Against my better judgment, I started moving toward it. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. As I got closer, I saw that the heavy chain was snapped, lying on the floor like a broken snake. The padlock was gone. The thick metal door was slightly ajar, a sliver of absolute blackness visible within. I pushed the door open. The smell that hit me was overwhelming, a cloying mix of chemicals, and that same sweet, rotten floral scent. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing vats of dried-up dye and rusted pipes snaking along the walls, and then the light landed on something that made me freeze. In the center of the room, hanging from a chain, was a mannequin. It was one of those old-fashioned ones, with a porcelain face and glass eyes. It was dressed in a tattered, old-fashioned dress, the kind a millworker might have worn 100 years ago. But that wasn't the worst part. Its hands, also porcelain, were clasped together, and in them it held a single, perfect, red rose. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The mannequin's head was tilted slightly, and its painted-on smile seemed to widen in the stark beam of my flashlight. Its glass eyes stared blankly, but I felt like they were looking right through me. Then, I heard a sound. A soft, whispering sound, like silk brushing against stone. It was coming from behind me. I whipped around, my light darting frantically around the dye room. Nothing. I was alone. But the whispering didn't stop. It seemed to come from all directions at once, a chorus of faint, airy voices. I couldn't make out any words, but the feeling they gave me was one of pure, soul-crushing sadness. I stumbled backward, out of the dye room, and slammed the heavy door shut. I didn't bother with the broken chain. I just ran. I didn't stop until I was back in the relative safety of my office. The door locked, and a chair wedged under the handle. I sank into my seat, shaking, my eyes fixed on the monitors. For the rest of the night, Camera 7 was active. The shadow figure would appear intermittently, sometimes standing perfectly still in the middle of the hall for minutes on end, sometimes flitting back and forth with impossible speed. It never looked directly at the camera, but I felt like it knew I was watching. The whispers continued, too, though they were fainter now, just at the edge of my hearing. I could hear them through the office walls, through the hum of the electronics, and every so often, a new image would appear on one of the monitors. A flash of a red rose on a dusty floor. A close-up of a mannequin's smiling face. A glimpse of a tattered dress. It was like the mill itself was trying to show me something, to tell me its story. When dawn finally broke, and the first rays of sun pierced through the grime on the windows, the activity stopped. The monitors showed only empty hallways. The whispering ceased. The mill was silent once more. My relief shift arrived, and I practically sprinted out of the building, not looking back. I quit that day. I told my boss I was sick, that I couldn't work the night shift anymore. I didn't tell him the real reason. Who would believe me? A haunted textile mill, a ghost that leaves roses. They'd think I was crazy, but I know what I saw. I can still smell that sweet, rotten scent sometimes. When I'm alone in the dark, I can still hear the whispers in the dead of night. I looked up the history of the mill online. 100 years ago, a young woman who worked there disappeared without a trace. Her name was Rose. They said she was beautiful, and that she had a secret admirer who would leave her flowers at her workstation. They never found her, and they never found out who the admirer was. I think she's still there, trapped in the silence and the dust, forever waiting for someone who never came back. And I think there's something else there with her, something that still walks the halls. I don't know what it is, but I know it's not friendly, and I know it sees everything. Thanks for listening to my story. Stay safe out there, and be careful what secrets old buildings might be keeping. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling tales. See you next time.